Thank you very much for your time. So, we'll try to make this a little fun and interesting, as in we are opening up the thought process of starting a new genetic company on a specific application. The end goal here is to foster a financial crisis of the European pension system by radically increasing the lifespan of the population. Okay? And as Julie said, we, emboldened by previous success in a similar environment, we came back for more, asking for more. So, there is a lot of attention in the last month, weeks even, on the longevity issue in general. However, there is extreme fragmentation in the different approaches and the messages that you get about this. And as of today, the majority of players in the area seem to come either from a pharmaceutical background or marketing charlatans. Okay? However, in doing a little research, we have grown a non-indifferent appreciation for the ability of the charlatans to actually latch on to certain market-driven demands, right? So, in this case, I will show you the thought process that we developed internally, and we'll specify a little better later what we means in this case. We're a genetics company, genetic testing company, in trying to put a few boundaries and a few conceptual guidelines that help us defining what is longevity as far as our involvement could be, right? And we came up at the end with 5 ideas, 5 pillars that we believe to be true. For the purpose of this conversation, please bear with me and pretend you believe me in what I'm saying. Especially potentially interested investors, we would be very happy to host you in our lab, open the books, and go a few layers deeper into the scientific basis of what I'm about to say. Pillar number 1. Longevity is a long Pareto scenario, meaning the Pareto effect for an individual affecting his or her longevity outcomes are divided over a large number of factors, each of which contributes for a certain amount of good weeks, months, years, or whatever, right? As opposed to a short Pareto system in which you have one or very few factors which have a disproportionate amount. Somebody mentioned it before. Imagine if you have an advanced pancreatic cancer, this is going to look like one big column and all the rest is going to be at 0. Your smoking habit will not have much of an effect on this, right? So this is the first separation. We interpret a longevity approach as a long Pareto approach, as opposed to a disease approach, which is a short Pareto approach, with 1 or maximum 2 deciding factors. You can safely ignore all the rest. What I just said is an attack on the pharmaceutical approach to longevity management, right? Which means, what's the pharmaceutical approach? We will find one molecule, one ring to rule them all, and this one molecule will save your longevity problem, and you can ignore the rest because the molecule belongs to me. It's patented. I manufacture it, right? Pillar number 2. Not only we have a long Pareto in longevity management, different individuals have different setups of their long Pareto, right? It is not enough to define the long Pareto of effects that impact your longevity once, and it's going to be the same for all of us. Each one of us is going to have a different personalized ones, most likely groupings, clusters of individuals which have similar things. But basically what it means is you really want to know your individual long Pareto of longevity related effects, because this will have a big enough impact on downstream treatments, actions, lifestyle to make a difference. It will be worth knowing your own. These 2 first pillars are what we believe to be general characteristics of our species, and they are timeless, not bound by anything that's happened recently or now or so on. Now we go to the things that are happening right now. This is the dynamic on just PubMed, one of the many forums for scientific publications. This is divided by 5-year periods on scientific peer-reviewed publications on longevity. Okay, the thing is exploding. On PubMed alone, we have around 800,000 scientific peer-reviewed papers dealing with longevity and longevity effect. There is no shortage of scientifically valid, solid information about longevity. However, we define this for the time being vaguely, loosely defined word longevity, right? A lot of people, a lot of very competent people in universities, research centers are working and focusing on this, and the output is staggering in a way. There is no shortage, right? There is no secret sauce somewhere that nobody reveals. And the information gets updated very fast at this point. I'm sure everybody in this room understands what the fourth pillar is at this point with this. All of a sudden, and let me go back a second. The first time I gave this speech, so it's still not perfectly. The second pillar with the personalized Pareto is also an attack on the pharmaceutical approach to this, right? It means it looks very close to the pharmacogenomics approach, but instead of being used for one cancer molecule, it's now spread over tens or hundreds of effects, right? All of a sudden, oh, by the way, this is an attack on the gatekeepers of the industry. We work in genetic testing. There is a social professional class which holds the keys to the kingdom, and these are the university professors, top researchers, top doctors in the field who absorb the enormous quantity of information related to medical information about cancer, about infectious diseases, about everything, and distill it into an indication for the diagnostic industries about which parameters should be checked and how, right? We run a diagnostic company. Every day we deal with thought leaders in the area, scientific experts who distill the available information and tell us to test for an HPV, these are the genotypes that you need to follow up, and so on and so forth. Right now, all of a sudden, this professional class is in competition with an alternate intelligence filtering mechanism, with a whale that swims in this ocean of information and, like plankton, filters all this information available. Okay, we took a liberty of running a little test because we have genomic testing panels related to various conditions and diseases, metabolic disease, for example. And we asked a couple of AI agents to redesign the panel based on publicly available information. It's indistinguishable from the thought leader approved panel that we have been using and manufacturing so far. Okay. So there are at least some preliminary indications that this approach yields very good results. All of a sudden, the lowly technology guys like ourselves, making machine software and reagents, find themselves holding the one thing that AI cannot replicate, a manufacturing line for instruments, for biochemistry, and writing software no longer. Fifth pillar, the last one. This is a little less decisive. We could do it without this. And the guys who presented before me, they have an alternate approach to this, right? However, in our genomic world, there is a big thing happening lately that NGS, next generation sequencing, meaning a way to analyze DNA in a massively parallel function, testing for tens or hundreds and eventually thousands of parameters at the same time, has now transitioned from an R&D method to a diagnostic method. Okay? Our company, we're probably the largest manufacturer in Italy for certain applications and probably in general of NGS kits. We specialize for the moment in neonatal screening. There are regions in Italy where every child is tested, blood sample, genetic testing, 450 genetic diseases, to create a personalized genetic profile of the child. We only test for curable diseases. There are non-curable ones, but for bioethical reasons, those we leave those aside. And you as a parent get the result out of these 450 diseases, how many does your child have? And you can start the intervention right away, not between 20 and 30 years old of age when the disease usually appears and becomes clear. This is a tool that allows us to develop immediately a first project in longevity management. By the way, the neonatal screening is a longevity management tool. Okay? Only you start in the first week of life of the individual instead of starting when he's 50, he's wealthy, he would like to have an extra 10 good years added to his lifetime. So, everything that we said so far, it's not connected necessarily to our company, to me, or to our initiative, right? These are things that we believe to be truth available to anybody. And I believe for most of you, the next few slides are an obvious logical conclusion. There is an opportunity here, right? There is an enormous amount of data. The data there are flowing, right? Hundreds and thousands of research teams are pumping research and scientific data and information on publicly available databases. We have all back-tested this, by the way, with another application that we do, microbiota testing, right? Very similar situation, very complex, lots of things going, it fluctuates over time, right? We are back-testing everything on something that we work on already, which is neonatal screening and microbiota testing. On the other side, there is an opportunity to put this information in action, to verify and to feed back into the system, right? There's a huge opportunity to combine this large amount of data and scientific research available and AI, and to generate very quickly a lot of potentially interesting tests and applications. Forgive me, this is purposefully vague and doesn't add a lot of information, because these are the ideas that we're working on right now. Okay, how exactly do you put this in practice in a way that's consistent with regulatory systems, data protection, industrial supply chain, manufacturing lines for diagnostic products, and so on and so forth, right? However, this is the interesting loop. And this is the long-term moat. Right? So far what we said could be done by a lot of people. It would just cost a lot more money if you don't have the technological infrastructure in place to do all these things and to create this process. Okay? Once you have accumulated enough data and the feedback loop starts, that part is not like the articles we said before. That's proprietary. So while all of this might be interesting and creates a potential opportunity, we realize that somebody who's willing to do this with us, we would like to do a spin-off of our company and dedicate the spin-off on longevity management, based initially on genetic testing, and then it could expand to a lot of other things, of course. There is a product opportunity which is right in front of us. This would take years or months, this would take weeks to do. And this is to use the same model for neonatal screening and apply to a population that, instead of being 5 days old, is 50 to 60 years old, to collect information about genetic biomarkers for susceptibility of various things that could happen in your life, lifestyle or something. Let's say 200, 400 parameters, something like this. And to develop a product that could do a targeted NGS screening and have as an output to define a personalized, permanent at this point, right, predisposition mapping for each individual involved. Okay. One of our clients, a lab chain in Italy, my marketing head called me today in the morning during breakfast, asked for this yesterday. We want this yesterday. All the big lab chains are adding products and services related to longevity, because that's apparently everything anybody wants to talk about in our space, okay? And we would have the first client is waiting, okay? Of course, they could design something on their own, okay? But it will be suboptimal and it will not grow and update as efficiently as we think we could do it, okay? Of all the potential business models that this spin-off could be involved with, this is the least ambitious. We make other products that we sell to laboratories and they do their money, they buy it from us for 100, they sell it for 200 and we're all happy, but this is small, okay? There are opportunities that are much more aggressive. We could go direct to consumer in a way, or one way or another, okay? The margins of this are extraordinary. You heard before, we're in the same. I had a chat with my original investor that Julie introduced me yesterday. And over coffee, we estimated margins at our cost, because we make everything at cost. 90%, okay? Could be 92, could be 85. It's immaterial. Oh, by the way, the spin-off has exactly zero capital cost, because all the capital, both tangible and intangible, as in designing the secure cloud-based application, the data verification, the regulatory system, the labs, the machines, they're all there in the parent company, the one that we already have, which will be a large shareholder, of course. So the capital allocation to do this is exactly zero, a few computers. That's all we need. Brief word on when I say we, who we are. We're Helyx Industries. We were nothing when we met Julie. I was below $1 million in revenues. We got a little money. We grew with COVID, mostly in Canada, go figure. We had very good relationship with a few Canadians for whatever reason. And we are now listed on the secondary market at the Milano Stock Exchange. Okay, and we are a technology company. We are I like to say, we're the smallest vertically integrated genomic testing company that does both software, hardware, and reagents. We make our own machines, we write our own software, we have a manufacturing line for reagents, and so on. We have as a company, surprisingly high level of scientific contacts, especially in the US. We are the partners on Johns Hopkins on malaria research. The Bill Gates Foundation chose us as a technology platform for the analysis of mosquito-borne diseases in Africa. Wow. I have been basically waterboarded by Microsoft people over software integrity, data safety, you know, the physical torture was the last step that I didn't get to, but basically to convince Microsoft that they should use your hardware and software platform for a mission critical application in the contrast of malaria. And as our friends in Johns Hopkins always said, if they had a US option, they wouldn't go with you guys, okay? Who are this small Italian company, you know, as a partner. So they also think you are the best at this very limited area, what you do. And as I said, all the capital allocation, to reproduce what we have and would be needed for this new co somewhere, it would probably cost 15 million, 2-3 years, 3 million for the software certifications and the databases and the cloud safety infrastructure, encryption, anonymization, you know, a couple of millions for the regulatory systems that we have in place, audits, everything done, you know. 12 to 15 millions to run this. We think there is a very good specific time window that everybody's rushing to go. Jeff Bezos invested $3 billion a couple of years ago in a company that has basically a similar mission statement. However, in my opinion, they are very stuck on the pharmaceutical approach, okay, in this sense. There are other companies go with this. There are 3 reasons. You will recognize some of the points we said before. Finally, the scientific knowledge base has reached critical mass. We saw this with microbiota also. 8 years ago, 0 published, almost close to 0 peer-reviewed papers published in the international literature. 2 years ago, it was 100,000 papers. We've seen exactly the same thing, and then it took off. Everybody's talking about microbiota simply because we have something to work on. We gave a look at this for AI 6 months ago, it didn't work. We looked at it 2 weeks ago, it worked. Meaning it replicated panels that were previously developed by a known thought leader in the area. And 3, we have this in our world, in our genomics world, NGS is working on a diagnostic level, meaning it's no longer a research tool, it's an industrial supply chain. Thank you very much.